Before we start reviewing the sampling techniques, let's look at the types of research data that you might be using for your project. As you can see from the slide, in general, two types of data can be used. It's primary data and secondary data. Primary data that you can specifically collect for your study, and they can be either qualitative or quantitative. For example, the types of qualitative data involve focus groups, in-depth interviews, and projective techniques. The types of quantitative data can be collected from surveys or from observations or from experiments. Secondary data are the data that are available or have been collected before your study began. So you don't have to be involved in any data collection activities when you rely on that kind of data. Secondary data can be either internal, available to you from your institution, for example, or external, available from other sources. Internal data are those that are ready to use but require further processing for your study. External sources of secondary data could be published materials or computerized databases or some syndicated services that are offering secondary data for analyses. As you can see from the previous slide, there are many methods to gather data. Each of these methods has its own strengths and weaknesses. While you have a choice of data collection methods for a given study, it is important to choose a method that will provide you with the best answers to your research question within any limitations you might have. When choosing the right data collection method, there are many factors to consider. The first one is validity. The method must provide the data to match your research questions. For example, in a study of the relationship between the social skills of adolescents and their academic success, collecting information from parents of adolescents gives you parental perception of social skills that is not the same that objectively measured social skills. Therefore, it might not be the most valid way of gathering this type of information. Reliability is another factor. The chosen method of data collection must provide the data with consistent results, especially if the study is repeated by others. For example, a personal survey of shoppers just before the store closing time might not provide the same responses as interviewing shoppers at other times when they are less busy. The method chosen must be appropriate in the context of the project's objectives. Observing what others have done in previous studies on the same topic area may help to confirm the most appropriate method. The chosen method must provide sufficient amount of data to conduct the planned analyses. Thus, the issue of sample size is relevant for all data collection methods. Among the materials posted this week, you will find a handout with minimum recommended sample sizes for various research designs. The selected data collection method should match the degree of flexibility required in terms of informational needs. For example, when interviewing is selected as a data collection method for studies of exploratory nature, semi-structured or unstructured interview protocols are preferable. Obviously, the preferred data collection method should not cost you more than you can afford according to the project budget and should allow you to gather information, analyze, and interpret it in a time frame planned for the study. Finally, the selected data collection method should minimize bias and any systematic error in the collected data and should be within the research capacity to complete it. So let's say you've decided to rely on secondary data in your study. Given that all secondary data have been collected for purposes other than current problem, some questions must be asked to assess the usefulness of these data to the current project. You need to ensure that the methods used for the data collection are reliable and valid, that the reason for which the data were collected relates to the present problem, that the data are current, and that the source is credible to ensure accuracy. Some particular questions to be asked when the study intends to use secondary data are: what was the purpose of the original study? And who collected the information, and what information was collected, when was it collected, how was it collected, and whether the information consistent with other studies. And now we're going to move on to the sampling techniques in quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methodologies.